What's up guys, Nathan here, and today I want to talk about pocket jacks and the number one mistake that I see people consistently making. This is the hand that people tell me consistently causes them the most trouble. So today we're going to get to the bottom of this. Let's jump into how to start playing your pocket jacks better. All right, so what is the biggest mistake people make with pocket jacks these days? Well, it's overplaying their jacks on bad flops. Now, what do I mean by a bad flop? Well, you know, I probably don't need to explain that to you. It's going to be anything with an ace on it, a king on it, a queen on it, or some combination of them. So something like a ace king 4 with 2 hearts, or a king 3-9 rainbow. Rainbow just meaning 3 different suits. Now these flops are going to come, as you see on your screen there, 57% of the time. There's going to be an overcard or some variation of multiple overcards on the flop 57% of the time when you go to the flop with your pocket jacks. So guys, it's the majority of the time. So we need to understand how to play these spots effectively and not end up dumping a bunch of chips to somebody when they hit that board, and also being able to get the maximum value when they don't have something on that board. So, you know, the first point I want to make is that betting big is not going to scare them. It's not going to help to just go, you know, bet pot, and just pray and hope they go away. This is a big mistake that I see a lot of people making these days. And I kind of refer to this as the little dog with a big bark syndrome. It's a little dog and it's making a lot of noise by making these big bets. And guys, it doesn't matter how big you can go all in, you know, how big you bark, you're still a little dog. And if they have ace queen or king queen or whatever, they're just going to call you. So we need to develop a better strategy than just bet big and pray, okay? And it's because if they have it, they have it, as it says there. So let's consider using a strategy like a delayed c-bet instead, or perhaps, or letting them bluff at it. I talked about this in a video just a couple weeks ago, which was all about delayed c-betting strategy. So let's now talk about how that's gonna work with pocket jacks. All right, so delayed c-betting with pocket jacks. Number one, what is a delayed c-bet? Just for those of you guys who are new to the game and don't know what that term is yet. Delayed c-bet, c-bet stands for continuation bet, and that is essentially, so it's when you raise pre-flop with pocket jacks in this instance, and then you do not bet again on the flop. You do not make a continuation bet on the flop. You instead check, and then you make your bet on the turn. This is an excellent way to disguise the strength of your hand, as we're going to talk about right now, and get value in later on in the hand. And when I say value, by the way, I'm just talking about getting them to call with worse hands. All right, so let's look at an example here. You raise it up with 2 red jacks and a tag calls. Now, tag is tight and aggressive. This is a regular type of opponent that you've probably encountered a lot, especially if you play small stakes, mid stakes kind of games. Most of you guys watching this video probably would play. Flop comes down with a king 3-9 rainbow. In fact, the exact same flop we talked about just a couple minutes ago. What should you be doing in a spot like this? As we know, a flop like this is going to come down 57% of the time when you have pocket jacks. Well, instead of betting out here like most people do, why not instead mix in some checks once in a while? Now, I want to be clear here. I'm not saying that you should do one or the other all the time here. In fact, I would highly suggest that you have some sort of a balance in this situation. You could even just go 50-50 in this spot and, you know, make your continuation bet 50% of the time and go for a check 50% of the time. But I think the mistake that a lot of people make here is that their betting ratio, their c-betting ratio, continuation betting ratio is too high. They'll bet here, you know, 80%, 90% of the time. And once again, guys, it's just like the little dog with the big bark. You're just making a bet and just praying that they fold, which is not really going to help us in this spot. So why not mix up our play here and let an aggressive player bluff at it, for example? Or if they decide to check back, then you can go ahead and bet the turn. That's going to be a delayed c-bet, and you're going to get more calls. Why are you going to get more calls? Because your hand is under-repped. Say the turn comes with like a 4 of hearts, some sort of brick, something like that. When you bet now, assuming it went check on the flop, when you bet now on the turn, they're not going to believe that you have a hand as strong as pocket jacks. So now you're definitely going to get calls from all the 9s in his range. You'll probably get a call from a 3. You'll probably get a call from pocket 7s, pocket 8s, a bunch of different draws, maybe some ace highs, stuff like that, because they don't believe that you have a hand as strong as pocket jacks. So using a delayed c-bet is often a great way to get more value. I actually talked about that in the Pocket Kings video just last week. You guys can check that out. It was the same thing. I talked about playing, I walked you guys through some examples, playing Pocket Kings on an ace high flop and how a delayed c-bet is often going to get us more value. So really what the point is that we're getting at here is to let aggressive players bluff. Especially, I love mixing in more checks with pocket jacks on, you know, flops like ace XX, king XX, queen XX, especially versus aggressive players, because not only does this allow us to get value in later, as we just talked about with a delayed c-bet, but this also opens up the door to let aggressive players do what they do best, which is, you already know, bluff. Of course, that's what they like to do. So pocket jacks is actually a perfect bluff catching hand versus these kind of players, because you've under-repped your hand tremendously, and often by just checking and letting them go crazy with their wild bluff or whatever, you actually end up getting much more value than if you had just made the so-called standard play, which is what most people do, and just bet out and essentially force them to fold. Because what you guys need to realize and remember when you're making your standard play bets on the flop and on the turn with a hand like this is you're forcing your opponent to fold all their bluffs. You're taking away their ability to bluff at the pot from you, and often that doesn't help you, especially against the kind of loose aggressive players that a lot of you guys tell me you have the most problems with. You know that on a board like king XX or ace XX, most of the time they didn't hit that flop. So if you just bet out versus them, you're just forcing them to fold and you're just going to take down a small pot. Whereas often there's much bigger value in just giving them the rope, just letting them go and do what they do best and going on their wild bluff with their pocket fives or whatever they have. So guys, I really wanted to present two different ideas for you in this video on how to play your pocket jacks better on these boards where there's an overcard or multiple overcards, because obviously playing your pocket jacks when the flop comes 5-5-4 or 9-6 deuce or something, it's not difficult. You know, that's going to happen, of course, 43% of the time, and I probably don't need to make a video teaching you guys how to play your pocket jacks on boards like that, because really you just go ahead and bet most of the time, you know, because you probably got the best hand. So, you know, you just go out and bet. I've talked about many times that, you know, in these videos and in my books and stuff, that slow playing is usually a pretty bad idea in smaller stakes games. You usually just want to bet out in spots like that. But I find that a lot of people really, where they mess up the most with pocket jacks is on the boards that have the flops, that have overcards. They often end up either barreling into the nuts or just forcing someone to fold when they would bluff at it. So it's really important that we think these spots through in more detail and we develop a game plan versus each specific player type. And that is also absolutely crucial to your play in all situations at the poker table, is playing the player, not the board. You know, this is something that I've discussed in many of the videos on this channel and in all of my poker books as well, is that, you know, I'm often turning hands like this into a bluff catcher versus the aggressive player types, whereas versus the more passive players like the nits, the rocks, and the recreational players, the non-aggressive recreational players, the whales, you know, I'm going to often play this hand in a different way. But versus the aggressive players, a lot of the time with a hand like this, it's better just to let them go on their wild bluff rather than scaring them out. Again, let aggressive players do what they do best, what they love to do, which is bluff, of course. And you know, guys, really this goes for kind of any situation in poker where you're just kind of unsure where you're at. Often versus aggressive players, the best thing to do is just to give them the rope to go on their wild bluff instead of just forcing them to fold or putting yourself in a situation where you're just betting into the nuts and they're just going to call you. So anyways, guys, I hope this video gave you some food for thought on how to play your pocket jacks a little bit better. This is one of the bigger mistakes I see with a lot of people, especially these days, is just really overplaying jacks on, you know, the bad flops, the flops that have the overcard. Like I said, this is the majority, so it is really, really important you understand how to play these situations optimally. But anyways, let me know how you play your pocket jacks in the comments below. What is your strategy when the flop comes with an ace or a king or a variation, a king queen? an ace queen, something like that. Let me know your strategy with pocket jacks in the comments below. If you guys want to see more poker videos like this, make sure you're subscribed to the channel and also shove all in on that like button below if you found this one helpful. And lastly, I'll leave a copy of my free poker cheat sheet. That'll be the top link in the description below, and that will give you my entire strategy on how to play every type of hand, not just pocket jacks, at the small stakes and mid stakes, and get you guys winning more consistently. And finally, I will leave another video I made just recently right here that I think will help you guys out some more. Thanks a lot for watching, guys. This has been Nathan Williams with BlackRain79.com.